like I partly texted through with my now it's in through for it's an interesting well, there's some things here and some this semester and some coming next year. So it's about right now.
Just the mic, sir.
There's the microphones. Is that going to be an issue for the microphones? Maybe.
Mike, do you know if we can move the table a bit?
If it's a problem, it's not. It doesn't have to happen.
You don't mess with your wires.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with your wires.
I mean, just
I would just like move it over like a foot or two.
Yeah, just.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. That's it.
And we'll start. You're about ready?
Oh, is it time?
Yeah. I'll go tell the others.
Okay.
I'm gonna introduce you. Is that okay?
Yep.
No, you gotta keep busy, my phone's here.
רגע, למה אני לא יכולה לראות פה שום דבר?
Dangerous for all of us. Doing all the things which I honestly,
Why isn't this working? There's no way. No, I can't. I was trying to present it on another window so that I could see it. And I can't figure out how to do it. So,
You need to go to display, like.
yeah. I did that. Let me do it again.
Oh, but it disrupts it once it's.
Display. So then I did arrangement, right? And then I don't want to mirror displays. And then I had it. It worked for a second.
Yeah,
and
but
it
then
stopped
when you
working.
start the.
It disrupts
Yeah.
this, right? Like if I.
But if you start this slideshow, and
Why
then.
and then.
Yeah, it just does that. And then. Is it here?
Yeah.
Or here? Wherever your notes are.
Okay.
This
Okay,
is your
but now
notes?
it disrupted that.
Wait, where is the.
It's on Chrome. Right, so it's doing it for
So
both
this
of
is
them.
here, and then
It's that one.
this one.
It takes that one.
That's so idiotic. Do you want my laptop just like email this to me and I'll open it up on my laptop.
You know, maybe I'll put it on my phone. I'll bring my phone up.
Are you sure? Whatever is more convenient for you.
Yeah, that's fine. It might even be on here already. So. Okay, so I'll do that and go back to this, but I'm going to stop marrying because I don't need to marry. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. We are going to start again. So our next event is a workshop with Hadar Ahuvia. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited. I'm going to quickly introduce Hadar and then let her take over. Hadar Ahuvia creates performances, workshops, and rituals drawing on the multidisciplinary lineages of postmodern dance and Ashkenazi Jewish diaspora. Raised in Israel, Palestine, and the U.S. Turtle Island, Ahuvia's work has been supported by Movement Research, Baryshnikov Art Center, Yado, New Music USA, and the Brooklyn Arts Council, and has been presented by Nila DTW, call it that, the 14th Street Y, Art Stations Foundation, Dance Space Project, Gibney Dance. Gibney Dance. Her work, Deconstructing Zionist Folk Dance, was recognized with a 2018 Bessie nomination for Outstanding Breakout Choreographer and a mention in Dance Magazine's 25 to Watch in 2019. Ahuvia has shared her research at AJS, ASU, City College, Whitman College, and Yale University, among others, and UMN. She has collaborated with Jaffa-based choreographer Shira Evyatar, is a performer with Reggie Wilson, Fist and Heel Performance Group, and is working currently with Tatiana Tenenbaum in recasting Sonic and Embodied Jewishness. Thank you, Hadar.
Thank you. I just realized, will people online be able to hear me if I stand over here? No. Interesting. Okay, yeah. Yeah, for now, I can stand here for now, but then when I start moving, it won't make sense for me to be behind a podium. So, first of all, thank you, Shir, so much for having me and for this conference and for an opportunity for me to think about my research in the context of Piyyut. And, okay, great. And my research is really in conversation, and thanks to many teachers and people I've collaborated with that I want to give credit to, including Victoria Hanna, whose workshops I organized during in the first year of the pandemic. Tatiana Tenenbaum, who is a years-long collaborator, musician, composer, choreographer. Meredith Monk, who's also a composer and choreographer. Samita Sinha, who is a Hindustani singer and contemporary performance artist, who also works adjacently to the dance field, and Henkes Netsky, who I'm currently working with in Boston, who is founder of the Klezmer Conservatory Band, lots of things, an ethnomusicologist of Hasidic music. And this presentation will really be kind of like a walk through my process of how I've been reclaiming a diasporist, feminist, Ashkenazic identity. I also just started rabbinical school 3 months ago, and part of that is to try and learn about Jewish embodiments in a holistic way. So, I don't know, an academic, this like mix of yeshiva and academia that the school is trying to do is not necessarily authentic, but it is a way that I have been trying to find an immersive space in which to experience different kinds of embodiments related to recovering a Jewishness that is not Zionist. And that work began through dance. But before I do that, that's why these slides are here, I just wanted to start by actually singing and activating our bodies. I chose to focus on this Piyyut, Ki Hine Kachomer. It was written in the 1200s, and we're gonna sing it to a Chabad melody before I say anything else. And I'm gonna put this down. Okay. Can I see a show of hands of people who know this? Okay, great. So I'll do a little bit of teaching. Okay. Ki hine kachomer. Your turn. Ki hine kachomer beyad hayoytzer. Beyad hayoytzer. Birtzoy marchiv, birtzoy marchiv, uvirtzoy mekatzer, uvirtzoy mekatzer. Let's do those two verses together. Or they're not verses. This is a whole verse, the first two lines. Ki hine kachomer beyad hayoytzer, birtzoy marchiv, uvirtzoy mekatzer. Ken anachnu beyadcho, ken anachnu beyadcho, chesed noitzer, chesed noitzer, labrit habet, labris habet. I made a little error there. Bris. Okay, bris. Ve'al tefen la'yetzer. Ve'al tefen la'yetzer. Let's go from Ken. Ken anachnu beyadcha, chesed noitzer, labris habes, ve'al tefen la'yetzer. Let's try that whole stanza, and thank you to those who already know this. I'll invite you to really pay attention to, as Melissa invited you to do, pay attention to what your body is doing. If you're not used to pronouncing these words in this way, notice what feelings or sensations that's bringing up. And let's try it all together. Ki hine kachomer beyad hayoytzer, birtzoy marchiv, ubirtzoy mekatzer. Ken anachnu beyadcho, chesed noitzer, labris habet, ve'al tefen la'yetzer. Does anybody want to share a sensation, a thought, or feeling that came up while we did that?
Moving the hands, that felt so logical.
You were moving your hands?
Yeah.
Amazing. Did you notice when you were moving your hands?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, from the beginning about clay and you think of the hands shaping it, your hands, my hands, I don't know that.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that.
Oh, you need to be able to hear people.
We need the mic.
Okay, yes, I can stand here.
Sorry.
Anybody else? Galit?
I have to admit that pronouncing Hebrew in that way is really stressful for me.
Yeah. Yep. I was feeling really self-conscious about it earlier because I know for me it's a thing that feels like it's taking off the yoke of Zionism, but for others it is maybe an affirmation of that, an Ashkenazi hegemony. So I do feel a little awkward, I don't know, doing that. So, but it has been, it was like very strange for me as a process, a learning process of like learning this different pronunciation. And so I really appreciate that you're saying, you know, like it feels uncomfortable in the body, like it has an actual effect on the body and on our feelings, how we pronounce things. And how we are maybe forced or taught to pronounce things. Yeah. Any other comments before we go?
I know this melody in a completely different context, so it actually feels wonderful to sing it in such an accent that is foreign to me, and playing with the words like this in a melody that I was so familiar, like as a background.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that melody in a moment. I think it's why I chose to look at this Piyyut, because a lot of my work where I start, my starting points are, like even as I was working in Israeli folk dance, like what is my embodied connection to the material? And so starting with dances that I have direct transmission with. And so this is a song that I have direct transmission, the melody, singing it with my dad in the car to you know, a Zionist lullaby. But it becomes a place where I can, you know, invert the meaning in the way that Piyyutim have for centuries, right? Like taken these melodies that have been, right, that are so catching and putting new words to them. And my understanding is that it's not really clear. I don't know, I thought maybe these words were were first used in this melody, but I read something today that says maybe the lullaby was written in the 30s, and this Chabad melody existed, was written in Nikolaev in the 1800s, but was only set to these words in the 50s. So, anyone else? Oh, yeah.
When you invited us to re-sing it the second time, I was just more conscious about where the sound was coming from in my chest, and I have no singing training, but I could really feel lowering the source of emission of sound, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. I'm going to use that as my transition. Thank you so much. And I'll take the mic back. Let's see. So, oh, no. Turn it on, okay. Oh, you know what? Can you, while I'm doing this, can you connect me to the internet so that I can show these videos? Because I didn't realize I wasn't connected. Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite you to, if you're comfortable, stand up. If not, you can put both of your feet on the floor. If not, stay as you are. But those are the graduated ways of participating. This exercise is from work I've done with Smita Sinha, who I mentioned is a Hindustani singer. And in the Hindustani singing tradition, there is a mapping of the notes along the chakras of the body. And as I've been learning Nigunam, and also in their context, and learning also about Kabbalah and the Sephirotic tree and the way that it is actually visualized also in the body, I've been feeling some resonance between these two ways of imagining movement. And I'll say that for, especially in the Chabad world, that melodies, they have a whole series of CDs called Nichoach, which means smell, and it is the smell of the sacrifice that is rising up to the heavens, to God. So our singing is a kind of sacrifice, is a kind of work, a service, a labor of spirit that is happening in the body and moving the energy up and down the body. And we really can feel it, and I'm not as trained musically as many of the people in this room, but I am trained in feeling things in my body, and whoa, hello. All right, let's just do it. I'm going to stop talking. So I'm going to pick one moment in the melody. And I'll invite you to repeat that with me. One more time. And now we'll take another moment. This is from the second section we didn't let you learn, so I'll do it and you can repeat it after me. I'm also going to ask you to use your hands. I would use both hands if I had both available. So to use them to help you map where you feel the resonance in your body. And I'll go a little slower this time. You can do it with me. One more time, a little faster. Let's go back to the first one. And I'll invite you maybe to spread your feet out if a little wider and to feel that the energy is moving when you feel it low in your center, that it might be also extending all the way to the ground, and that when it is moving closer to your head, it might also be extending beyond your head or your crown. Let's try that last one as fast as I think they do it when they sing it, which is one more time. I'm going to do it and listen for where you feel the accent. All right, beautiful. I'd love to hear, again, any sensations, thoughts, feelings that are coming up for folks as we do this.
Well, the same thing that I felt when we did it the first time, before we did this little exercise, was the melody seems to be going up and down, which is very much like the content of the Piyyut. So there's a kind of intensification of meaning, or even before there's meaning, there's a kind of transmission of content just through melody.
Beautiful, thank you. And I didn't talk a lot about the meaning, right? But the meaning of this Piyyut is this whole conversation between the creator and the thing being created, the artist and us, the humans, in the hands of the creator. And I also love that there's a conversation between the artist and the thing that is being made, as there is a conversation between the divine and us.
I was noticing that the more we were repeating it, the more I was becoming aware of the back of my body. So my movement was moving backwards. So that was very interesting to me.
I love the breath of it, and I know that there are some Hasidic Rebbe who did breath with prayer, and I think that's very wholesomeness.
One of the, what do I say? Yeah, that I think so. One of the ways that I think that energy is moving through the body is through breath and through resonating in the different spaces of the body, and that it is, in singing these songs, it is an actual movement of energy in the body and around the body, which is actually a very ancient Jewish idea that I'll talk about more, but like in Sefer Yetzirah, that the world is created through utterance, through the vibration of utterance, of sound, and that in some teachings very inspired by Sephardi Kabbalists, that the world is still standing only because these vibrations and this breath of life is constantly being recreated. So I feel that in doing these practices, in singing and breath, that we are participating in the recreation of the world with singing. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
You still just want us to share feelings?
Yeah.
Okay. With the faster one, I noticed the arrival at the end. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to show just a little bit of, actually, but you all are standing. Am I going to make you sit down again? Okay, you can take a seat if you like. We'll come back to standing in a moment. I'm just going to show a moment of the melody let's see, the song that I first was introduced to this melody. And I'd love for you to pay attention to what differences you notice in the quality of the melody as it is being sung to these words.
שכבי מנוחה על נתי וגמרה על ידך יושבת עמך שומרת מכל רע וילל בחוץ התן ונושבת רוח שם אך אתה ליהי משמע נומה נומה לילה 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 צל יעוף מהר מאוד אסור 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 להתעצל מחר צריך לעבוד
Can't be lazy. Tomorrow we have to work.
מחר ילך אבא לחרוש בתלם בתלם ילך הנה תגדל תרים הראש תצאו לשדה אז יחדיו.
Okay. Sorry, I'm making this very participatory because I think it's more interesting than me talking the whole time. So what did you notice about the difference? Did you notice any difference in how this melody interacted with those words? Did it change the valence of the melody to you or not?
I think in both there was like a real rocking, but I think the rocking when it was first sung was more like what I associate with like davening and like the rocking of prayer, and then this was much more like a bassinet, you know, because it's a lullaby and she's talking about children going to sleep. So it's interesting that it can be a similar motion or give sense of a similar motion, but for very different purposes.
Well, her delivery was all about the space between the notes. It was all that glissing, which gave a very endearing quality, but certainly different than what we were doing when we were using the Kihine Kohomer.
I am setting this up a bit. So I'll just share. These are just the words to the chorus, and so I'm just interested in how this melody that's so evocative is being utilized, instrumentalized to tell this, rather than it's a complete destruction, right? Like reversal of what the Piyyut is about, which is a reliant relationship between the divine and us versus complete independence and self-reliance, and this like Zionist nationalist narrative relationship to space and the land. But using this melody that is so evocative to get our emotions invested in that. It's very funny. So in my research for different versions of this melody, I found this version, which was performed at the Piyyut conference in Israel, and it's by Halev and Hama'ayan, and they are Chabadniks, and so I think that the way I was interested in looking at how they were performing it and understanding their relationship to the like particularities of the music, and so we'll listen to some of this version and invite you again to notice in your bodies what is happening as you're listening. So as not be too jarring. So any observations on the melody as it was performed here?
I was curious about the staging, the fact that the is it a clarinet? Yeah, the clarinet is center stage both in the video but also on stage, like upstaging the vocalists, and it's becoming almost like a solo performance of the nonverbal melody.
Yeah, and which I think is a really interesting. There's a dialogue in Hasidic nigunim between the instruments and the singing, because there are periods of the year where you are not allowed to use instruments, that in the singing is actually imitating the musical instruments. So I think, like, I don't know, somehow the prominence given to the clarinet here made sense to me in that way. So I was curious about the rhythmic quality of this one, and I asked my teacher Hank Snetsky about it, and he said that it was a what is known in the klezmer world, a Tatar dance, which I'll play an excerpt of. Nope. Oh, maybe. There it is. And before that, to say that, so this melody is attributed to the Khartinov, one of the Khartinov brothers who lived in Nikolaev, which is southern Ukraine, right near Crimea, and that the performance of Tatar music was a way of, like kind of embodying maybe like what it to them was like this macho identity, but then interesting that they're taking that melody and setting it or using it as for spiritual work. And Hasidim have like no problem with doing this, with taking music from the outside world and performing them as spiritual content, and that the setting, the context for them of doing the singing of their spiritual work changes the melody. So this is a different version of a Tatar dance, just so we can isolate the rhythm. Oh, sorry for the quick cut out of the music. We were introduced to the melody in the way that it's used as a lullaby is this waltz. But here, and I'll play a clip maybe further along, it's not a waltz. So this is interesting to me. As a movement artist, I feel this creating like a different rhythm in my body, a different energy in my body, but in the service of a devotional act, as opposed to maybe in the Tatar context that they were imitating. Oh, I can stand over here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so appropriating that energetic quality for a devotional stance is interesting to me. Let's see, this brings me to, not this, okay. So, why is it not going on to the next one? Okay, here we go. So this feeling of the downbeat moving. I'm just going to like moving on to another way that I've been feeling this downbeat in my body, and I'm going to invite you either to imitate me or the Rebbe, who we're going to watch in a moment. And I might let this play all the way through. I feel like we have to cut things off a lot for the sake of time, but I also want to give us a moment of really sinking into the feeling of something. And I think there's some really incredible energy work that's happening here, maybe of the kind that we were doing using our hands with our whole bodies, that he's doing with very minimal movement, but that has very great effect. And this is a different nigun. It's in a different melody. It's not a piyyut. It's a psalm. It's tzama lecha nafshi. I just feel like it's such a wonderful illustration of this point.
tzama lecha nafshi, koma lecha v'tzori, be'eretz Tzion ve'yoyeh b'limoyi.
So I'm going to read something from the Chabad website. It's not exactly how I conceive things, but I think it's interesting and useful. If the words are the pen of the heart, taught Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, then the song is the pen of the soul. The soul's pen, however, writes in the opposite direction. Oh wait, this is not the one I wanted to read. Here we go. Sorry. The nigun of a tzaddik encodes his soul, and when we sing a nigun of a tzaddik, we connect with his innermost garment of the tzaddik's soul, and from there come to the union of the light that the tzaddik has found. That is why each note and nuance of a nigun must be precise as the words of sacred text. They must be learnt and repeated in perfect form, because the tzaddik's mind and soul are held within them. So I feel this way, not in reverence of the tzaddik, but in reverence for embodied knowledge and for all the wisdom and information that is encoded in each of these details. And trying to, deconstruct the ways that I learned Zionism in my body through language, through song. Learning nigun has been one way that I am looking for different modalities, different methods of expression. Not that these people are not Zionist. So I'm doing another act of appropriation. I'm not looking for an authentic source, but I'm looking for source material to build new Jewish non-Zionist identity that is rooted in practices that my grandparents were participating in before their migration to Palestine. So let's see, and the way that Hankus Netsky has taught me to do this is there's this cycle of energy, right, that he's doing with his head that I think is it feels like a pump and from or rocking out, yeah. Sorry, thank you. Melissa is really greatly demonstrating, right, maybe at a rock concert, right? It's I think about it in terms of as a practitioner also of Qigong, that there are energy centers, right? This is called the door of life, and it's a point that's very sensitive, and that I think there is an emergence of energy, a fountain of energy that is happening in the way that he's able to conduct a room full of thousands of Hasidim. Is really incredible to me. Okay, so maybe I'll go on for the sake of time. Another method that I've been using to investigate song, movement, language. So I'm going to invite you to stand up again. And this work is inspired by Victoria Hannah, and the work that she has been doing, inspired by Sefer Yetzirah, exploring the vowels and the way that they open pathways of voice, and she's been doing incredible artwork based on it. So I'm actually going to go to, let's see what we're doing. Okay, so Sefer Yetzirah describes the world as being created from the vibrations of the letters, so moving on from the story of, deepening from the story of creation. And that each of the letters and each of the vowels have a resonance that is participating in creation, and that different combinations of letters and vowels are actually what form the materiality of the world that we are experiencing. I'm taking a step, away from how Victoria Hannah has been doing this work and trying to use her methodology to investigate Ashkenazi pronunciation. And what are the particular resonances of these particular vowel sounds. But we'll begin with one that's common to Hebrew and to Yiddish or any dialect of Hebrew, which is the patach. Which is that one, which is just a straight line. And I'll let you put your hands on your jaw. I can't put both hands on my jaw. But patach means to open. And we're just going to make an ah sound. As Melissa beautifully said earlier, feeling the opening in every direction, behind you, in front of you, above, below, and to either side. I'm going to invite you now to think of your hands as a sphincter that is mirroring what is happening in your mouth, and if you feel like moving your hands to echo what is happening in your mouth. to go on to tzere, which means to narrow, comes from the root to narrow. Put your hands back on your jaw and notice that your jaw is narrowing. And mirror with your hands now away from your mouth, if you like, imitating, like your hand is imitating what your mouth is doing. We'll go from A to A. Right, so something that actually happens in the Ashkenazic pronunciation that happens less in modern Hebrew is that A has a yud, like this E at the end, this chirik. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. All right, so, sorry, let's do E first. We'll just do the dot. It's called chirik, which sounds like the word for insect in Hebrew. It's a very high, sharp sound. And notice where you feel it in your mouth. We'll go from A to A to E. Right, and now let's go to the Kometz Aleph. So the Kometz Aleph looks like this, and does. Yes, in Yiddish, this is how you pronounce this this vowel. So we'll say the sound. And now let's try oi, and again, just following, listening to the movement that's happening in your mouth as you move between those sounds. Oi, 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 oi. And try using your hands. See what your hands want to do as you make this sound. Oi, oi. Oi. We're saying oi over and over again. Okay. So I've, let's see, let's do this. Okay, so what I feel that these open up are it's like another layer of interpretive possibilities for how to interpret the words in the text. Like if I look, that's not the one, okay. So when we look, I look at the word yotzer, yoitzer. So in the Ashkenazic pronunciation, we wouldn't just read it yotzer, it would be yoitzer. So try saying that with me. Yoitzer, which has this directional quality to it. Yoitzer, that yotzer does not. Yotzer stays on this plane. Yoitzer goes up to another plane. The yoitzer is above. And then marchiv, which is here, to spread or to stretch. So let's say that word together. Marchiv, marchiv, marchiv. And I'm going to invite you, if you feel like doing something with your body, to do it, or to imitate with your body what you're doing with your mouth. Marchiv. Okay. Anybody want to share what they're noticing?
This is just reminding me a lot of voice lessons. I don't know, do you take voice lessons sometimes?
I sometimes do.
Yeah.
But I did this work like not, it's like it's voice work, but it's, I don't know, I wanted to do it inside of like a whole cosmology? I know, what does it remind you of, I guess is my
Well,
question.
this, it's been a while. Maybe some people here are voice teachers, but like the putting your hands and elongating your jaw to produce certain sounds, and then keeping the jaw in the same place to produce other kinds of sounds.
I'm just
very
not-
voice lesson-y.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
take me back.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, it is. I mean, this is like, it's a way that I think Victoria Hanna has done vocal, that she has developed her voice. And I don't know, I guess what I'll say is like, I approach it as a movement exercise and not isolated to my throat and my mouth. And also not isolated from meaning making. You know, I think so. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this work is like, well, if I'm studying Western singing, if I'm getting lessons in Western singing, I'm getting a whole cosmology with that's not being spoken. So let me work with an artist who has developed a whole cosmology around pronunciation that I'm interested in.
Yeah, it wasn't, this obviously
Yeah,
wasn't
sorry
meant as
if
a
I got
critique.
defensive, yeah.
No, it was just like, I was like, oh, I've never really thought about the kind of movement and embodied nature of voice work that happens in voice lessons.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think like even in singing, which we don't think of as like a holy, is actually something that's happening in our whole bodies because it's resonating. All parts of our bodies, like our own voice is resonating inside of our bodies and also resonating space with these different frequencies and shapes and sounds and actually shaping space. It's, yeah. So.
I would say like, I think I agree with that, but it almost felt like turning like the point of like the sort of demonstration like on its head. Whereas like when I've had voice lessons, usually it's like, you do this like movement or you feel yourself because you want that like perfect sound coming out. It was more starting from the sound and seeing how your body is like emergent of that, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Thank you. I think as a singer, I feel like so much of this material is the material we work with as singers. Like we will interpret the text marchiv, or we will stretch it, because this is our materials. But I think that triangulation of the text and kind of the language details and like just the feeling and the tuning, and I don't know if that's also, when we do it as a group, is very different than if you do it by yourself and really sense what an ah transforming into an a inside your own body does, not in a room full of people doing it together, is a very different effect. And that's also something that's interesting in all those versions that you played for us, where the group sings together and the sound is like created by this flock, and whereas the performer, the singular, pronounces something of their singular self. So those choices within that are also very interesting. So I can see all the dots.
Amazing.
And how they connect. And I'm just really, as somebody who's been singing and moving, I'm noticing also I'm bound to very specific aesthetics. Like I won't be able to do certain things in my body because it's going to mess up with the sound I'm supposed to do. And especially if it's scored music. Like in here I can do that. But if I have to sing very high, because that's what's written down, there's be certain things that I will just not be able to do with my body. So, or very low, or or running around in circles, having to sustain and maintain. So there's also some things to do just with the like with the aesthetic and the colonization of singing in general.
Yeah.
That comes into play as well.
I have to respond to that, and then I want us to have time to sing it all. So I'm gonna, unless I can go over, it's almost 5. Do we have time? Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the top where I had it all. Yeah, so one of the things that Tatiana Tenenbaum and I have done, that she has done in her work that I've learned with her, is like she would have us like crawl on the floor while doing long tones. And I think it's exactly this. It's like breaking the colonization of sound and what kind of posture do we have to take while we're singing. Just as one response to that. But I'd love to connect all the dots and sing the first 2 stanzas of this melody again. And see if you can remember, right, like thinking of where we started with moving the melody in the different, if you want the sefirot or the chakras of the body, or just up and down the channel of your spine. I'll be emphasizing the melody with my thumb, and also about these shapes of the vowels, and what possibilities is in them, what shapes do they take in your body and in the space as we do them collectively. Maybe I will, yeah. So I don't have to stand for everybody else. Okay. All right. כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברסוי סומכים וברסוי סומקצר. כן אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבט ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתס ברצי סבחס וברצי סמכתס כן אנחנו בידך מחיה וממויסס לברית הבט ואל תפן ליצר. That's what I have for us today. Thank you so much for participating in all your...
Stop here and have comments individually. Thank you so much. This concludes our first day of panels, which was incredible. I think we can close this off and I can speak to you without a mic. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Hadar, and to everybody who sang. I think my favorite moment was when there was a room full of people just put their hands on their faces saying, oi, oi, oi. Wonderful meme of the conference. There is a dinner here for conference participants in about half an hour.
No, it's ready.
Oh,
No, it's ready, so I will be ready.
there's another meal.
And we have plenty.
Yeah.
We have enough for people who are.
Yeah, and we are going to figure out what is the best way to get from here to the Cedar. We might all take a bus. The concert doors open at 7. The concert starts at 7:30. And yeah, I will update you on what is the best technical way to get there in this weather. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, go on.
I want to